About 10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon and I saw Secretary Rumsfeld and Deputy Secretary Wolfowitz. I went downstairs just to say hello to some of the people on the Joint Staff who used to work for me, and one of the generals called me and he said, "Sir, you got to come in. You got to come in and talk to me a second." I said, "Well, you're too busy." He said, "No." He says, "We've made the decision. We're going to war with Iraq." This was on or about the 20th of September. I said, "We're going to war with Iraq. Why?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "I guess they don't know what else to do." So I said, "Well, did they find some information connecting Saddam to Al-Qaeda?" He said, No. He says, "There's nothing new that way. They've just made the decision to go to war with Iraq." He said, "I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we've got a good military and we can take down governments." And he said, "I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail." So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, "Are we still going to war with Iraq?" And he said, "Oh, it's worse than that." He said, he reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper, he said, I just got this down from upstairs," meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today, and he said, "This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran." The truth is about the Middle East is, had there been no oil there, it would be like Africa.
You must remember, dear people of America, that whenever government wants you to think and act in a certain way that would bring justification to an action that they are already planning to make, they must make the person that they hate a boogeyman.
Muammar Gaddafi clearly lost the confidence of his own people and the legitimacy to lead.
Carry on. We'll see. We have no other but Muammar Gaddafi. Gaddafi, he's our hero, African hero.
الشعب الذي قرر أن يعيش بكبرياء وأن يعيش حر وإلا يفنى على بكتابية. المسكين سيراكوزي افتح النزاع الليبية، لكن ننصحك تاخذ مهدئات قبل لا تفتح النزاع الليبية، لانك ستصعق حتما. اعصابك ضعيفة، ما تتحمل ما تراه في النزاع الليبية. تحدي الشعب الليبي، المظاهرة المليونية لا تستطيع اعصابك ان تتحمل.
Gaddafi chose the path of brutal suppression. Innocent civilians were beaten, imprisoned, and in some cases killed. Peaceful protests were forcefully put down. Hospitals were attacked, and patients disappeared. A campaign of intimidation and repression began.
Well, the reports of Libya mobilizing its air force against its own people spread quickly around the world. But Russia's military chief says they've been monitoring from space, and the pictures tell a different story.
According to Al Jazeera and to BBC, on the 22nd of February, Libyan government has inflicted airstrikes on Benghazi, the biggest city in the country, and on Tripoli. And according to Russia's military, they have not registered any of those airstrikes. According to them, the pictures show that nothing of that sort has been going on the ground.
Now, the tough new sanctions and Gaddafi's increasing isolation are based on allegations that he has ordered airstrikes, bombing of civilian protesters. We have seen no evidence of that yet.
One day, everybody in the world is saying the Libyan Navy is bombing the harbor of Misda. Misda is in the middle of the desert. It's 1,000 kilometers from here. The Libyan ships they are bombing the harbor of Misda. excuse me, what's this? The Security Council issued their resolution against Libya because of a fake media report saying that the Libyan Air Force is bombing civilian districts in Tripoli and killing 7,000 people.
For decades, he's demonstrated a willingness to use brute force through his sponsorship of terrorism against the American people as well as others.
Over dinner last night, the camera caught this wary encounter with America's president, though they eventually shook hands.
And through the killings that he has carried out within his own borders. Here's why this matters to us. Left unchecked, we have every reason to believe that Gaddafi would commit atrocities against his people.
The coalition said destroying Gaddafi was not their goal. Then why bomb his palaces? Now some officials have claimed that eliminating him was in fact their goal. Who gave them that right? Did he have a fair trial? Returning to the no-fly zone, the bombings are destroying the country's entire infrastructure. When the so-called civilized world uses all its military power against a small country destroying what's been created by generations, I don't know if that's good.
Gaddafi declared he would show no mercy to his own people. He compared them to rats and threatened to go door to door to inflict punishment. In the past, we had seen him hang civilians in the streets and kill over 1,000 people in a single day. Now we saw regime forces on the outskirts of the city. We knew that if we waited one more day, Benghazi, a city nearly the size of Charlotte, could suffer a massacre that would have reverberated across the region and stained the conscience of the world. It was not in our national interest to let that happen. I refused to let that happen.
I have your 36-page suit here. You are listed up here at the top. Not often you see a suit that says versus Barack Obama and Robert Gates. You filed the suit against these two men over the U.S. involvement in Libya. But Congressman, first, we did hear just a short time ago from our White House correspondent, Brianna Keilar, that the administration's argument is this. They say we, the U.S., do not have boots on the ground in Libya. U.S. troops are not in imminent danger. They do not need congressional approval for what they're doing now in Libya. Do you have some information that perhaps the White House doesn't have with regard to U.S. forces in country?
That's a silly question.
Why is that a silly question, sir?
This isn't about footwear. This is about the Constitution of the United States.
Sir, I took a look at this 36-page suit, and you specifically cite examples of different members within the U.S. saying there are boots on the ground.
But we initiated a war against Libya. There's no question about that, and that's indisputable. And to say, well, just because we don't have boots on the ground, it's not a war, huh? I mean, there's bombing that's occurred. We've had planes over there. We've got ships offshore that have been that launched attacks. You can't claim that this isn't a war.
I'm not a Supreme Court justice, so I'm not going to put my constitutional law professor hat on here. Do I think that our actions in any way violate the War Powers Resolution? The answer is no. So I don't even have to get to the constitutional question.
Simply, sir, what's your reaction?
That's a horrible statement.
What is your sense there? Should the president ask, or is the president right in saying, I'm the commander-in-chief, and this is being done through NATO, I don't need the blessing of Congress?
The president is absolutely wrong, and you don't even need the War Powers Resolution because the Constitution is enough.
Do you think the administration's goal and the policy of the United States should be regime change in Libya?
Absolutely not. It's none of our business. We ought to just stay out of it.
None of our business.
None of our business. We don't need to be in there. That's a commercial business going over there. And that's why the British have commercial interests. The British and the French have commercial interests, and I'm sure we do too. We've been doing business with Gaddafi for the past 5 years. And now the oil is over in the east. That's where the rebels are.
Many thousands could die. A humanitarian crisis would ensue. The entire region could be destabilized, endangering many of our allies and partners. The calls of the Libyan people for help would go unanswered. The democratic values that we stand for would be overrun.
We Libyan people decide our leader should stay with us. Not American people or not Obama, no Sarkozy, no for Cameron. All of us decide no for foreign intervention, and they should stop bombing our places. They stop killing our children. They should stop killing our fathers, our mothers, destroying our houses and our hospitals. This is what they are doing now. I just want to ask rich people, when I was in UK, did I ask you to ask Elizabeth to go out from Britain? I didn't ask you.
معمر القدافي بنقولوا لك يا قائد صامدين معاك صامدين لاخر قطره دم في الساحه الخضراء في باب العزيزيه ضد الناتو ضد بوشنا ضد مجلس العار المجلس الانتقامي ضد اوباما ضد ساركوزي. Go to hell Obama. We're not afraid from you. We're not afraid. We are with Muammar Gaddafi. This is the Libyan people, not you. This is the Libyan people. All the Libyan people with Muammar Gaddafi. Muammar Gaddafi, our leader. We will not let him go, and he will not go. There's no revolution after Muammar Gaddafi revolution. There's no revolution. وبنقول كل معمر احنا صامدين معاك صامدين معاك. اوباما مش خايفين منا ولا خايفين من ناتو. Go to hell, Sarkozy. And Obama, keep bombing, keep losing your money. We're not afraid. We are with Muammar Gaddafi. We are with Muammar Gaddafi. You should understand these words. We are with Muammar Gaddafi. All the Libyan people with Muammar Gaddafi. You are nothing, Obama. You are nothing. And the NATO, where is the safety that the NATO talk about? Where's the democracy of your country? Leave us, leave alone. Leave us, leave us. Let us live in peace. Let us live in peace. We won't live in peace. And peace with Muammar Gaddafi. Muammar Gaddafi, give us the safety. Give me the freedom. Give the Libyan people the freedom. And Allah wa Muammar wa Libya wa bas.
Let me be clear. These terms are not negotiable. These terms are not subject to negotiation. If Gaddafi does not comply with the resolution, the international community will impose consequences, and the resolution will be enforced through military action.
الكلاب صاروا يضربوا حرام عليهم بلادنا يضربوا فيها يدمروا في بلادهم يضربوا فيها معمر بوم على تضربوا فيه يضربوا فيه الله ومعمر وليبيا وبس الكلاب اصبحوا قناة جردان سندرنا لهم سندرنا لهم هم يضربوا ويقصوا سندرنا لهم الكلاب الله ومعمر ليبيا وبس قاعدين يضربوا صبح وليل والفجر الناس راقدين يضربوا فيهم سندرنا لهم عناه يضربوا طيارات زعلان يضربوا حرام عليهم يضربوا في بلادنا حرام يضربوا فيهم علاش يقولوا ما يعبوا في المدنية ما يعبوش بيهم يضربوا فيهم خليك شوية خليك نجيب لنا علي
And we are not going to use force to go beyond a well-defined goal, specifically the protection of civilians in Libya. Now, the United States did not seek this outcome. Our decisions have been driven by Gaddafi's refusal to respect the rights of his people and the potential for mass murder of innocent civilians.
To talk to the NATO, you say that you are coming here to Libya to protect the civilians, but the truth, you are attacking the civilians. So what? And you are make this as a reason as a cover to do every what you want under it. So I want to say for you, do every what you want. And the funny thing, you are saying for our leader Muammar Gaddafi to go out. We're out. Muammar Gaddafi in every heart of Libyan people. If you want him to go out, you should go for every heart and take it, Muammar Gaddafi, from them. So we are with our leader Muammar Gaddafi, and we will never give up from him. You pumping us because you think we will give up and we will scary or afraid of, but you are wrong. We are with our leader Muammar Gaddafi. Do ever what you want, but you are still with him. And lastly, I want to say, Allah Muammar Libya just.
This is just one more chapter in the change that is unfolding across the Middle East and North Africa.
Listen, NATO and rebels, both are in a hurry. They want to finish as soon as possible because they are hungry, they are tired, they want to share the cake. It's like, for them, Libya is like fast food, like McDonald's, fast. Because everything should be fast. Fast war, fast airplanes, fast bullets, fast victory. But we are very patient because we are in our country. It's our country. We live here, we die here. So we are very patient.
Talking about mistakes and lessons, what would you have done differently?
One of our big mistakes that we stopped, we delayed buying new weapons, especially from Russia. It was a big mistake, by the way. We delayed that, and we delayed building a strong army because we thought that we will not fight again. The Americans, the Europeans are our friends. We will not fight again. Not to build a strong and modern army was a big mistake because we thought that we solved our problems, and now we are a peaceful country, and no WMD anymore, no Lockerbie, no more relation, we do business. The Libyans said this, it was our mistake to be very tolerant.
From the beginning of these protests, we've made it clear that we are opposed to violence. We've made clear our support for a set of universal values and our support for the political and economic change that the people of the region deserve. But I want to be clear that change in the region will not and cannot be imposed by the United States or any foreign power. Ultimately, it will be driven by the people of the Arab world. It is their right and their responsibility to determine their own destiny.
The U.S. has reportedly asked Saudi Arabia if it can supply weapons to the rebels in Benghazi.
First and foremost, as Charles said, this is a wonderful day for the Libyan people, and I think in large part because they did it themselves. They certainly had tremendous support from NATO, but they did it themselves. And when Charles talks about the large number of lives that were lost, they weren't American lives. We didn't have American people down there fighting on the ground.
The question here is whether the U.S. is going to end up putting weapons in the hands of radicals and destabilizing the region even more.
Our goal is focused, our cause is just, and our coalition is strong.
They have one target. This country is a piece of cake, rich, full of gas, oil, and we have more than $100 billion deposits abroad. So we have to share this cake. That's it. And we have to get off Mr. Gaddafi because he's the only obstacle between us and the cake. It's as simple as that.
كان يجاوبون على السؤال اللي حاير، لماذا العراق؟ شو سبب له؟ بن لادن عراقي؟ ما هو عراقي، اللي ضربوا نيويورك عراقيين؟ ما هم عراقيين. اللي ضربوا البنتاغون عراقيين؟ ما هم عراقيين. فيها أسلحة دمار شامل عند العراق؟ ما عندها. يد عربية بالكامل تقتل تشنق في المشانق ما تفرج، لماذا؟ ما ممكن الدور جاي عليكم كلكم. اي نعم. ليش امريكا قاتلت مع صدام حسين ضد الخميني؟ كان صديقها. تشيني كان صديق لصدام حسين. رامز سلي كان وزير الدفاع الامريكا لما كان يدمروا في العراق، صديق حميم لصدام حسين. واخيرا باعوه وشنقوه. حتى انتم اصدقاء امريكا، نحن اصدقاء امريكا، بلاش نقول انتم، نحن اصدقاء امريكا كلنا. قد توافق امريكا على شنقنا في يوم.
You are hearing rumors, false reports. Please take your camera tomorrow morning, even this night. Go to every city in Libya. Everything is calm. Everything is peaceful. The point is there is a big gap between reality and the media report.
Footage we see on American and British channels looks fake. They create an illusion of military action. Where are the aircraft? Where are the bomb raids? Where is the destruction and casualties we hear so much about? If all that is true, evidence should now be on the table of the Security Council.
On both sides, the army and police on one, the insurgents on the other, only 150 to 200 people were killed. But it's claimed there were thousands.
According to some, it's about protecting civilians.
We must not tolerate this regime using military force against its own people.
Others say it's about oil.
The only reason they're interested with Libya is about the oil. You'd think we'd be in Iraq if the major export there was broccoli.
But some are convinced intervention in Libya is all about currency, specifically Gaddafi's plan to introduce the gold dinar, a single African currency made from gold, a true sharing of the wealth.
It's one of these things that you have to plan almost in secret, because as soon as you say you're going to change over from the dollar to something else, you're going to be targeted. There were two conferences on this. One in '96 and another one in the year 2000, called the World Mataba Conference, organized by Gaddafi. And everybody was interested. I think most countries in Africa were keen.
Gaddafi didn't give up. In the months leading up to the military intervention, he called on African and Muslim nations to join together to create this new currency that would rival the dollar and euro. They would sell oil and other resources around the world only for gold dinars. It's an idea that would shift the economic balance of the world. Countries' wealth would depend on how much gold they have, not how many dollars they trade. And Libya has 144 tons of gold. The UK has double that, but 10 times the population.
If Gaddafi had an intent to try to reprice his oil or whatever else the country was selling in the global markets and accept something else as a currency, or maybe launch a gold dinar currency, any move such as that would certainly not be welcomed by the power elite today who are responsible for controlling the world's central banks. So yes, that would certainly be something that would cause his immediate dismissal and the need for other reasons to be brought forth for removing him from power.
It's happened before. In 2000, Saddam Hussein announced Iraqi oil would be traded in euros, not dollars. Sanctions and an invasion followed. Some say because the Americans were desperate to prevent OPEC from transferring oil trading in all its member countries to the euro. A gold dinar would have given oil-rich African and Middle Eastern countries the power to turn around to their energy-hungry customers and say, sorry, the price has gone up and we want gold. Some say the US and its NATO allies literally couldn't afford to let that happen. Laura Emmett, RT, London.
Two years on from the fall of Colonel Gaddafi in Libya, the euphoria of the revolution has all but gone. Today, armed militias and Islamists rule much of the country, fighting over territory, smuggling routes and shares of dwindling oil revenue. To top that off, a desperate government is quietly reactivating Colonel Gaddafi's feared surveillance apparatus, using it to hunt down dissenters. RT's Paula Slayer reports on the sobering anniversary.
Anniversaries are often a time of celebration, but 2 years on, Libya has precious little to be applauding.
I'm not sure it will be right to assume that there's a government in Libya. There's no army, no police. Armed militias are in control. There's violent chaos.
Militia violence stalks the land. Jihadist groups are growing. Strikes threaten to cripple the oil industry. And economic stagnation is everywhere.
With all the bad, negative things that there are to say about dictators, they are controlling by force the situation in these divided countries.
Libya post-Gaddafi is far from the heady days of the revolutionary euphoria. Human Rights Watch says a wave of assassinations has killed dozens of politicians, activists, judges and members of security agencies.
All we hear is very troublesome, because we hear about clandestine detention centers that are run by militias that are not accountable to anybody.
These armed militias reportedly have more power than the government, turning the country into a new hub for Islamic extremism. Over the past few weeks, 3 new Al-Qaeda camps have allegedly opened in the south. Libya is becoming the main base for Al-Qaeda in the Maghreb.
We also know that as a direct result of the Libyan intervention, that the civilian government in Bamako, Mali, was overthrown in the north of the country, and certain Islamists took over, creating a humanitarian disaster, leading to tens of thousands of internally displaced persons, not to mention tens of thousands of refugees fleeing into Mauritania, fleeing into Burkina Faso, basically creating a morass.
And if that's not bad enough, the much-promised constitution has failed to materialize. Politicians are deadlocked over the role of Sharia law and bitter regional rivalries.
Libyan society consists of Arabs, Berbers and Tebu, so the constitution should represent all segments, and if any group is ignored, then this means exclusion.
The Berbers, who make up 10% of the population, are threatening to take up arms against the government.
There is a real danger that Libya may break up. You've had a severe problem in Libya with regard to the darker-skinned nationals of the south of the country not being accepted as equal by those who are lighter-skinned in the north.
And the deteriorating economic situation isn't helping. Commercial banks are closing their doors in protest against recurrent armed robberies. In a desperate attempt to keep a grip on things, the new government is reportedly using methods that were popular during Gaddafi's time.
Libya's transitional government has quietly reactivated the surveillance technology it inherited from the Gaddafi regime. It uses it to track the mobile phones and online communication of Gaddafi loyalists. The two regimes, it seems, are not that different after all.
Except that oil production is down, with Libya unable to promise crude deliveries next month, as on-off strikes paralyze its major sea terminals. 2 years on, many are asking, was it worth destroying Libya to get this broken state? While it's not clear who won, it definitely doesn't seem to be the Libyan people. Paula Slier, RT, Tel Aviv.